You're watching the 2018 Legatus Summit.
Padre Pio was such an Italian. If you have ever been to Italy, you know just how much they love life, how their songs are so filled with passion, how their food is obviously filled with their own hard work. I lived in Italy. This is a view that I have very familiar to me. That's the North American college where I studied, where I learned just how beautiful the Italian culture is, especially when it's captured in faith and in song, which is why I'm so proud to introduce a very special treat for you all, Maestro Luciano Lamonarca, internationally known opera singer, philanthropist, and president and CEO of the St. Pio Foundation. He will also be presenting and blessing us with a short vocal performance. Ladies and gentlemen, benvenuto, Maestro Luciano. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. Try to be brief, so lunch will be waiting for us. Padre Pio. Padre Pio in the 21st century, the saint, the priest, and the holy man. Why we title our speech in this way? Because often we think the saint as a person difficult to approach. Instead, it was, first of all, a holy man. How many saints you recall in the life of the saint to have as a testimonial or as an advocate, another saint? But probably in the life of a saint, only Padre Pio. If you go back, we can only recognize that the first ambassador and testimonial of Padre Pio legacy was a saint himself, Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II met Padre Pio when he was simple a priest of Cracovia. And after he attended Mass and confessed with him, he was revealed that one day he would wear a white vest. Sorry for my Italian accent, from a white vest. On the way back, the Pope said, I think Padre Pio was joking with me. You know, there will never be a Pope that is not Italian. We know how that story ended. The second, the most important, which served actually in the canonization of Padre Pio, was the fact that when the bishop, John Paul II, became a bishop, he attended the Second Council of Vatican on 1962. One day he received a telegram that said that one of his closest friends, Wanda Poltavska, had a cancer and she had only a few months to live. No surgery would have saved her. John Paul knew Padre Pio. He wrote a letter to Padre Pio. Padre Pio received a letter after 3 days. When Padre Pio received the letter, he hesitated for 1 minute and said especially, to him, I will never say no. He went in a corner, he prayed for a few minutes. 11 days after, John Paul II received a letter and says that Wanda was miracle cured. The cancer on her throat disappeared completely. So you may understand, we were talking about a saint who was recognized by another saint, was a living saint, John Paul II. Then let's talk about who Padre Pio was as a priest. Priests, we know, have a difficult challenge, a difficult task to being our spiritual director, directly involved with whatever we do on our Catholic faith. But Padre Pio was the first priest who received the stigmata, the sign of Jesus. We know St. Francis received the stigmata, but St. Francis was not a priest. Padre Pio was a priest indeed. So when he received the 5 wounds of Jesus, we think that it was one of his many powers that he received. No. People were approaching, millions of people from all over the country, all over the globe, were going because they were willing, they wanted to touch Padre Pio because of the scent the saint was surrounded from his open wounds. Then we also have the possibility of knowing that he was able to not eating and fast, very difficult task in Italy, for several days without losing weight, actually only taking communion. This is one of his main power, if we would like to call it in that way. But for me, and I believe for all of you, the most important thing was that Padre Pio has been always recognized as the main confessor. His main goal has always been to save souls. He has spent up to 14, 15 hours per day in confessional. And we all know, perhaps, that the best things he was able to do is to read our souls and to read our minds. If you were going to Padre Pio and you were asking to be confessed, you had to wait probably 1 or 2 weeks on a waiting list. And you need to take your line from 4 a.m. in the morning, and then you had your possibility of being confessed by Padre Pio. But you better repent, because Padre Pio was able to see in your heart. And if you didn't say all your sins, he was telling you what you were missing. And there was no absolution whatsoever. We are called to be honest with ourselves, to be honest in front of God. And that's what Padre Pio wanted. So it is indeed, and I recall the beautiful statue that Mr. Tim Schmaltz did. I believe this is an example of how art speaks to hearts, because he just represented the best way possible. Padre Pio and Jesus were one person only during confession. However, I also remind you that at 4:30 you can confess at the presence of the relics of Padre Pio. It's like you are confessing with him today, so please take this possibility. But Padre Pio, indeed, he was a holy man. Recognized by many as a saint while he was alive, he was living according with the teaching of the church. The Padre Pio, we know, he was a man who has founded an hospital, who has taken care on the poor and the sick. The Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, or Home for the Relief of Suffering, was literally found by Padre Pio and those lay people who believe in him. So he was being a champion for the poor and sick. But many still recognize him as the saint who received the stigmata. And many ask me the question, which I ask to you. Okay, but no, I don't feel comfortable sometimes speaking about stigmata. Well, as I say, well, tell me why. Because stigmata, you can believe it, you cannot believe, despite the fact that it has been scientifically proved that there is no explanation whatsoever why a saint who loses half of blood per day and he wears the stigmata of Jesus for 50 years, and those stigmata were healed just a few weeks, he passed away without leaving any marks whatsoever. He bared indeed the passion of Jesus. So I say to those who put me that question, how you will define a man who woke up in the morning to all the thousands of people who were coming from abroad asking for his help, confessing, providing help to those in need, and spending his time just dedicated to those who serve God. I won't be able to do that. I challenge many of you if you will be able to do that. There is a beautiful picture of Padre Pio laughing, which I carry all the time with me. He was able to laugh. And he was actually very good at jokes too, by the fact. We don't know that fact of Padre Pio, but he was good. There was a picture beautiful of Padre Pio laughing. Sometime when I wake up in the morning, and I ask forgiveness to my wife if sometimes I step with the wrong foot, I watch that picture, and I think to myself, well, if he was able to laugh, I can definitely make so many laughs out of my difficulties I have every day. That was the holy man, in my opinion. We all want to have an encounter. Our faith needs to have in this touch, to have things we can grasp with our hands, like when we have the picture of our deceased parents. No, we know our parents watch from the heaven, but still we need to have some things important. So here we are with the San Pio Foundation. We founded the San Pio Foundation in 2014. Our goal was to foster devotion and the legacy of this great saint. I came from the region of Puglia. It was a blessed region. It's not only Padre Pio lived there. We have the body of St. Nicholas and the shrine of the Archangel Michael. It can be better than that. Besides that, the Mediterranean diet was born in our region. Mr. Volare was born in the Italian region, in the Puglia region. But we go back 1 second. When we did the San Pio Foundation, I'm an opera singer, as you might have understood. And I went from benefit concert in trips, trying to bring the legacy of these saints outside church, appealing to the new evangelization. And then we end up last year having the blessing of having the possibility of bringing into the relics of Padre Pio. We really want to know how many faithful there were out there, how many devotees there were out there that actually knew about Padre Pio or were moved by curiosity. Well, 250,000 faithful show up in, 18 dioceses in this country on a span of 40 days. There was the second ever large gathering of devotees of Padre Pio. It was a touching experience, a healing experience for me, Because when I founded San Pio Foundation, I founded as an act of recognition that my wife and I have been blessed in receiving a son in a moment where we were told that there was probably no chances anymore. I prayed to Padre Pio, and he answered like to many others. The Tour of the Relics, following that event, we are bringing the relics of Padre Pio this year back in the country for an even larger tour. 40 between archdioceses and dioceses will be hosting these official relics of Padre Pio, which you are all welcome to venerate on the Florence Rome today and tomorrow. This, together with Mexico and Canada, will be the largest and the most historical gathering of faithful for Padre Pio. Padre Pio passed away 50 years ago. Is probably the most, and one of the most, together with Maria Teresa of Calcutta, saints of the Catholic Church. And because of that, I ask you to take a few minutes to see how the life of Padre Pio through the Tour of the Relics affected those faithful who attended in this 2017 Tour of the Relics. Please, can I see the video?
E Figlio e Spirito Santo.
We want to reach out to the people and bring the legacy of Padre Pio to them. This year, especially as it was the 130th anniversary of Padre Pio's birth and the 15th anniversary of his canonization, we are sponsoring this Tour of the Relics for the first time so that people can have this spiritual encounter with him. When we founded the foundation just a little bit more than 3 years ago, we found out that many people were actually devotees of Padre Pio but never flew to Italy. They never could reach actually the location of San Giovanni Rotondo where Padre Pio's body is now buried.
Did you feel something special?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't stop crying.
The most wonderful feeling I've had in a long, long time.
When you touch it, it's something really special.
Us to be able to pilgrimage to this site with my family and young children, and wow, what a blessing.
They're coming to have that experience of Padre Pio, whose gentleness, whose kindness, whose compassion associates all of those who come into contact with him with Jesus Christ.
They feel that by coming close to the relics of Padre Pio, they are coming close to holiness.
Thank you. There were people flying from all over the country for 30 seconds. Between today and tomorrow, you will have the opportunity to venerate the relics for quite a few minutes. While people really, because of the large number expected, they had 20, 30 seconds maximum per couple. That was impressive. I will finish to say that, were any miracles performed during Tour de Relics? There might have been. But miracles are small and big. I would like to say a story of a woman from Chicago who wrote us a wonderful letter, who says that her daughter left church 30 years ago. She was passing by one of the church in Chicago. We were hosting the Tour of the Relics. And she was confused in seeing all these people outside. She says, some celebrity must be here. And she was inquiring, who is here? The relics of Padre Pio are here. So she parked the car. She went online for more than 1 hour with her son. And she felt the blessing. She felt the spiritual encounter with Padre Pio. She cried, she went to meet her mother, and apologized for leaving the church for 30 years and never will do that again. That's, in my opinion, it's our miracle. As I said, I am Luciano Lamonarca, President and CEO of the St. Pio Foundation, but also a tenor. My speech today ends by singing, and so praying twice, as St. Martin has said. Our country has a song dedicated to God, God Bless America. This year, it marks the 100th anniversary of that song, and I invite all of you to stand and sing and pray twice with me this song. Thank you for being here. You are welcome to join with me the second stroke. You'll repeat it. God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains, through the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Please join me. God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, through the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Bravo, Maestro Luciano!
Please join us for the 2019 summit at the Monarch Beach Resort in Dana Point, California, January 24th through the 26th, 2019.